Hello, welcome to HLA Live. HLA Live is our regular broadcast on the HLA YouTube channel as well as all the other social media channels. Each week we talk to interesting people from across the HLA community.
Good evening, everyone. I am really excited to be chairing tonight's meeting.
Hi, I'm Rosie Spooner and I'm hosting HLA Live this Wednesday.
And I'm an HLA Scholar, and I'm also going to be your host this evening.
To share with us their ideas and their innovations and hopefully bring them to a global audience.
Quite quick, we have ideas, let's do this, let's do that. So
many of the topics come from our community, with scholars and faculty expressing an interest in many of the discussions that we're about to have.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the HLA Live session on widening participation in the postgraduate realm.
Homelessness and health.
Addiction and the new normal.
HLA programs are built on 6 pillars. The leader is an innovator and entrepreneur. The leader is a communicator. The leader is a manager. The leader as a negotiator. The leader as a follower, and the leader as a philosopher. If you are interested in becoming a HLA scholar, why not get in contact? Many of the episodes in HLA Live will cover one or more of these important pillars. The HLA team consists of Pedra, Eamon, Tim, Riddy, Alistair, Adil and Trisha, and a range of other HLA scholars and faculty. Episode 36 of HLA Live is hosted by our scholar Elle Morris. It is the third episode in our mini-series by the Women in Healthcare Leadership and is titled Kindness, Caring for Your Mental Health.
Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of the Women in Healthcare Leadership webinar series. We're part of the Healthcare Leadership Academy, and this year we're running a webinar series to help start a conversation with women in different areas of clinical medicine, dentistry, nursing, anyone who's on the front line or behind the scenes, who wants to have a role in leadership and doesn't particularly know how to go about that, or has faced issues related to being a woman. So today we're carrying on by looking at kindness and looking at caring for your mental health. And on that thread, we'll go back to the same speakers we had last week, and we're going to see what their top tips are to do with caring for yourself and your emotional reserves. So my first question today is, what unique struggles do you think face female clinicians, and how do you feel this can impact on mental health or well-being? And we'll go to one of our speakers to start answering this.
I think that's a really important question for us to try and address. And I think that many of the issues that female clinicians face aren't necessarily unique to female clinicians, but it's just that we see them a lot more in females. Obviously, there are some unique issues because we have biological differences to our male counterparts, but I think some of the issues we actually share.
Well, within healthcare, everybody faces struggles, or they may have, battle with their own mental health. And mental health is something that, we do speak about because everyone has a mental health, right? It's just how it's affected during day-to-day activities or how you feel that week.
Women often do take on the mental load of thinking about, when the kids are going to, they need the gym kit or whatever, all the millions of things. And even if not having children, just sometimes running at the house, women still seem to have the majority of that responsibility. And I think, again, that just adds to the emotional, it's emotional draining, I think.
And I think that can impact on females' health and well-being. And I think that, you come into the conversation of superwomen. I get called that quite a lot, and I find that very strange because I think, I'm not really being a superwoman, I'm just doing multiple things, and that's okay because there's men out there that do multiple things. But sometimes females I think that we take on quite a lot. We take quite a lot on our shoulders, especially, I know I'm not a mother, but, watching my mom and watching some of my friends, being mothers, that's a job in itself. So doing a full-time job or being in healthcare and, then having children, then, maybe being somebody that's does the cooking within the household. It's not always the case in every household, but I think that you take on quite a lot with that.
Medics and dentists, to actually get onto the course in the first place, you have to be quite a high achieving, almost perfectionist, and then you travel through life trying to maintain that level of achievement. And then you find yourself torn because you have other interests and other callings.
And kind of nobody really mentions that. We sort of know it, but nobody talks about that. So when you get there and you're in this maelstrom of demand and expectations, and obviously we're in an international crisis at the moment, those people who were selected for perhaps academic skills and obviously their will to help people and want to, you know, support others who are struggling, it draws every last drop of compassion out of them. It exhausts them, it drains them, they can't sleep for worrying, and obviously that makes clinicians at particular risk, obviously, of burnout.
Like myself, I have academic interests, I have my clinical interests, and then having a family as well, and you want to be perfect in every single role, as society dictates as well. It might not necessarily be something that you can achieve, but there's so much pressure on social media and women to be the perfect mother, carer, a full-time mother, but also a full-time worker, that's still achieving everything and being in that top high achieving level that you want to be in at all times.
It was the inability to be who I am and to be accepted. It was a feeling of failure, of not being good enough, and all of a sudden I'm not maternal enough, I'm not beautiful enough, I'm not happy enough, my life isn't going in the right direction. And you take it out on, I took it out, you know, take it out on your husband, you snap at the kids, and all of a sudden it's this mother's guilt. It's this guilt because what you then, when you're trying to sleep at night, that plays on your mind is not how so-and-so treated you in a certain way, it's just the way you treated your kids.
I'm a list maker, and you just need to tick all of those boxes and, you know, do really well in your exams, make sure your child starts talking and walking and hitting all those milestones, because obviously it's your fault if they don't. So many pressures that you put on yourself, they're external, and then you internalize them, and it can be very, very difficult. Also, at the same time, you must maintain the perfect figure, attain fitness, stay slim and attractive as well. The pressures that aren't necessarily felt so keenly by our male colleagues.
And I think one of the real big challenges that I certainly see at people my stage in their career is the pressure to become less than full-time, to take on caring responsibilities. And even though that doesn't necessarily always have to be a woman, I think, you know, in society quite often it is assumed that the woman will take that position. And so being then able to take on other opportunities like leadership roles and, you know, getting further in your career, that then there's just such additional time pressures that are really hard to face.
You know, I'm a acute medicine registrar. When I was applying for acute medicine, a very senior male acute medicine consultant said to me, "Oh, don't do acute medicine. It's not family friendly." I mean, at that point, I didn't have kids. I hate that term family friendly. I think it's just because it's so gender specific. You know, we rarely use it for men. It's always women. And actually, it's crazy because acute medicine is really sessional. And actually, since I've done it and had kids and gone less than full time, it's brilliant because because you don't need to be there every day. It works really well. So, and I think he had good intentions, the consultant who, was trying to give me advice, but I think, he made a lot of assumptions about me and about what I wanted for my career. And I think this does play out again and again. And I think how that impacts on women kind of for your mental health. I think if you're going for an interview and, interview's very stressful, and then you have a little bit, even if it's a tiny little voice in your head saying, oh, well, this is not for you, that can knock your confidence, and actually, that can have far more impact than maybe people think it does.
Emotions come into it due to hormones, because like females medically have different hormones than males. That's evidence, it's proven fact, right? So that can affect you in terms of the way you might feel at certain times of the month, and I think that's not taken into account. We actually have this WhatsApp group where it's just a group of colleagues who are really good friends of mine, and it just so happens that most of us are females, but we have one male in the group, and we decided to do a little bit of goals for fitness during lockdown. And I said, well, do you know what? At the time of the month where the females have to go through their situation, we should get like a kind of discount or a let off for not maybe feeling it that right. And you know, the male colleague in a group's like, yeah, absolutely, because he hasn't gone through that. So you know, I think that as well is a big aspect, and having people that empower, support you around you is what can help with that.
When I talk about me, my personal feelings of being betrayed or exploited, and I'm sure others have been privy to this. It's where you've been parachuted in to a toxic environment that can't deal with having a fantastic woman around me. And bigging myself up. No, it's where you thought you got a job purely on merit because you know you did, yet you end up being a tick box. And for me, I was young, I was female, and I was brown. So it was a tick box exercise. So automatically you're put into this toxic culture where nobody really wants you there. They're trying to bring you down. They feel slighted because they think, oh, you only got the job because of X, Y, and Z. And that's just no good for anybody.
In terms of like evidence-based or studies that have been done, I think that words, and I think it's Sheryl Sandberg on Facebook COO, she does quite a lot of kind of talks on women empowerment, and she spoke about, you know, success and likability, and highlighted that it's often positively correlated for men and negatively correlated for women. So basically that when a man is more successful, his peers often like him more, but when a female is more successful, she tends to be liked less, which is really strange. So it's a kind of trade-off between likability, which can create a double blind for women.
You don't get the respect from that point of view that you should. You know, I've done ward rounds with a very junior male colleague, and I've led the consultation, and then, you know, at the end the patient turns to the junior doctor and asks him the questions, and, you know, obviously I can't say that's definitely because he's male, but it does make me wonder whether, you know, that's because he's the male in the room. And, you know, comments about your age and your appearance. I mean, my age less so now, but certainly, you know, earlier on I got a lot of comments about your age and your appearance, and I think, you know, that's I think that's gender, to do with your gender often, and I think it how it affects you really is, you know, I think it makes you feel a bit underestimated often, and I think being underestimated is not necessarily a bad thing, but it can be when it means that you end up becoming overlooked.
Because it builds resentment. You can't build rapport. You have to try not double, not triple, quadruply hard to try and relate to people, to try and get something in common for you to, you want to be respected for who you are, but you just feel that you're a phony. And this massive imposter syndrome. It was really, really difficult. And when it comes to EDI, it's a perfect exercise on how not to do something. If your office is not sophisticated enough yet to be able to see equality, then don't do it. Don't parachute somebody into an environment like that. Work on the office that you have at the moment. Work on changing cultures. Work on unconscious bias training and reverse mentoring until you're fertile and, frankly, grown up enough to be able to accept that it's time for change and it's time for embracing people regardless of who they are. Because the opposite is to get somebody in where it's mental torture and it directly impacts on mental health.
It all adds to the mental energy that you need to get through the day. I think, you know, when you're trying to justify and improve yourself constantly, you know, against maybe a male colleague who isn't having to do this constantly, you know, that's taking your focus away from other things. And I think it can affect your confidence. It can affect lots of aspects, really.
And so that's why the self-care and the self-kindness and sort of looking after yourself messages are so important, but they're also really hard to do when we're trapped at the moment in this never-ending cycle of lockdowns and overwhelming dealing with death and sadness and bereavement, and, you know, it is just exhausting.
COVID has put lots of mental health issues out there. The impact has been the loss of my coping mechanisms. So by way of social interaction, we just talk more. It's a fact. Women like to talk. So we would, you know, during the school drops, for me, out for drinks, that was a big one, out for dinner, just hugs, just to be around other mums and have a rant of a lifetime, and for them to say, oh my God, it's exactly what, well, you never guess what I did. And then they talk about their life experiences, is how we do it. And that mechanism has been just taken away from us.
So that, yeah, you're right. You know, kindness and self-care and self-compassion matter.
My next question is, sometimes we hear gendered terms such as hysterical or telling a woman to not be overly assertive. Is there a way that we can handle this without actually draining our own emotional reserves?
Surprisingly, sometimes male counterparts, or even, you know, female colleagues, friends, people around you might not even notice the terminology which they're using or how that actually, you know, might affect someone.
It's very difficult. So I've found combating these sort of comments with humour is a very easy way of getting around them, but maintaining your sort of backbone in the situation as well. But also I have found that through my career I've almost acted less confidently sometimes. I've changed my personality for an easier ride to get through certain situations like that. If you allow someone to almost get away with it, it is an easier way to go, but it also then erodes your sort of sense of worth. So there's definite loss to your mental well-being.
I think that words can be very powerful, can't they? And it's difficult because vocabulary's changed a lot over the years, and I think we can probably all look back on our younger selves and think of some harmful words that we said that we didn't necessarily realise at the time were harmful. And I think that a lot of this depends on the situation that you're in, and wherever possible we should try and challenge those things, but sensitively, and acknowledging that the person might not have meant any harm by it.
It's interesting, isn't it? We don't talk about bossy men. It's a very, you know, specific term.
I think you have to come back to the fact that you can't be all things to all people. So you can't be, you know, you can't be the person that everyone else wants you to be. You have to be yourself. You know, I think if you look at a lot of great male leaders, they have very different styles. They lead in very different ways, and that should be no different for women. I think you're right. I think, you know, as women who are very assertive are often ends up being called bossy or aggressive, whereas if that was the male counterpart was saying the same things in the same tone, that probably wouldn't be the case. And I think that can make it tough for women in leadership roles. And I think the way around that really is, I think, a couple of things. I think, accept that some people are going to think that of you, or have opinions of you that, you know, you think are wrong, and that's you know, that's up to them to form that. I think find good female role models who do this very well, and you know, watch them in real life and see how they navigate this. For me, I think there's a big difference between being emotional and being passionate, and I think being passionate is brilliant. When you bring a lot of emotions into it, I think sometimes that can end up being very negative. So for me, I try to keep things, you know, more less emotional, more factual, but passionate. Yes, absolutely.
So in fact, I called you Dr. Scary. You were scary. I mean, I was shocked and a bit horrified, and I kind of, you know, it really threw, because I thought, what is it about me that's coming across like that? Because actually, I think most people who know I'm pretty smiley, relaxed, or chatty. I like to have a laugh. I mean, I was really thrown, and I think it was because at work, this person only ever saw me being really focused, really, you know, I would be perhaps asking for something specific, obviously polite and everything, but just saying, you know, have you got the results for so and so, whatever, and maybe they just never saw the other side of me. So it does make me reflect that, you know, we get labelled with these terms or called these things, and perhaps because people are unaware of, you know, your true personality. So that can be something that's happening, but also they do it to, you know, not that person, but, you know, in life it can happen because they want to undermine you or demean you, or you know, there are perhaps less positive reasons for using those words. And I think if that's happening, it's not easy, but we have to call it out. Now, if you are a senior person and you hear that happening, you have to be the one to help, if that other person wants you to step in or comment or check they're okay or what they'd like to do about it, because it is hard sometimes for juniors to feel that they, if it is coming from a more senior person, that they can challenge that.
And so I think that's a place where we can really help stick up for others. And whether we're male or female, if we hear words used that could be harmful, I think we have a duty to try and call them out. Now, how you do that obviously depends a lot on the individual situation, whether you try and have a private word with someone or, you know, however you raise it, it depends very much on the situation. But I think that we all have a role to play in trying to create a more positive culture.
It's a kind of question to ask yourself and listening for language like around you. And I think that if there's certain words being used as bossy or pushy or gobby or any of these words and highly emotional, it would be to try and identify, okay, so can you explain that further, and can you kind of like give a bit more, expand on what you mean by that, because it may often make that person think actually I don't have any evidence as to why I've said that. It's just something that I've said because it almost feels like it's the right thing to say because that's what you're doing. Oh wait, no evidence to back that. Do you know what I mean? So I think that sometimes people often use terminology because it's around them and they don't actually know what they're saying in terms of why they're saying it. And questioning that, I think, is really important, because it just, if they can provide facts, then okay, then you can have that discussion. But if there's no kind of facts as to why that term has been used, then I find that is a really interesting aspect and discussion to have without getting yourself uptight about you know, name calling or things that have been said.
You have to maintain your strength, continue to be the clinician that you're being. But yeah, it's awful that we have to find these coping mechanisms. That's the most frustrating thing.
And we just got one more question today, which is quite a nice round off. And it's, what do you do to be kind to your mind? And I'll put that to our speakers.
I think it's about finding your reset button and whatever that is for you. And I think that is different for everybody.
I'm a Christian, so for me, a large part of this is prayer, and when I'm struggling with things, praying about them and asking God for strength and wisdom.
For me, it's, you know, my husband and my 2 young kids and spending time with them. It's doing regular exercise. It's making sure you take time out of whatever you are in. And, you know, for some people that literally has to be turning off their phone, the computer, and putting it in a cupboard. For other people, it's not. Some people, it's just, you know, mentally saying I'm switched off for today and moving it away, and they can not touch their phone or whatever it is. Or saying today's my day off, I'm going to have a day off and I'm not going to do these things. I think having a break is really important. You have to be really strict with yourself about that.
When situations happen, I take a little step outside the box, and that's in every aspect of working life, personal life, to kind of put yourself outside your body so that you can actually see what's happening, and maybe rationalize what's going on. And sometimes you're definitely going to call things out, and in other aspects you might think, do you know what, actually that's not the context that I thought it was.
I also have a pet tortoise called Squirtle. It's very, very slow, and Squirtle reminds me that sometimes we just need to take time when things have upset us or challenged us. Sometimes actually being slow to respond is the best thing, so that we can consider our responses. And I also have a really supportive husband, so for me all of those things really help me with kind of mental well-being and dealing with any challenges that arise through work, through leadership opportunities. Whether I feel those challenges are a result of being a woman, or a result of being a doctor, or a result of something that I've spoken out on, having those things to fall back on really helps me.
I mean, one of the things I've done overall, not just at the moment, is to change, you know, roles. So, you know, we used to, many years ago, you'd go into a GP practice and you saw it as a job for life. You know, you could drive into the car park or park your bike day one of your GP partner job, you know, new principal, and think, gosh, I'm going to be coming in here till I'm, I don't know, 65. And that might have been quite an overwhelming thought, but it was also the accepted norm. Now, first thing is, in general practice, of course, that's no longer the norm, and most people will, you know, change roles, move roles. For me, that's been vital. I basically have had to sort of shake it up every 7 or so years, is what it's worked out as. So, you know, I did my hospital training and all of that, and then went into general practice. I did different type of general practice for a short while, but then I found student health, and that's what I loved. But then I wanted to do something different again, so I applied to be the director of service. And then again, 7 years later, I was like, I need to be doing this differently, doing something differently, you know, and I think for me, that keeps it fresh, keeps it interesting. And along the way, you know, for me, I got into medical politics, or, you know, others will get into a specialty like sports medicine. You know, there are things that keep you interested. So I think variety is absolutely key. My hacks that I've done were, you know, you need dopamine, you need your serotonin, you need your oxytocin, and you need your endorphins. My dopamine release by way of lists. I just write down everything I can, and had a gratitude diary or a gratitude journal. Hitting 1,000 steps, you know, just these tiny things that I can strike off and say, I did that, I did that, I did that, and you get the reward straight away. So that was for the dopamine. The serotonin was giving. So charity work. I created pebble art, creating something. I really believe in this creative outlet. Write a poem, draw something. You just have a blank piece of paper in front of you. It's surprising what comes out. And I was selling that, and I was doing something called pebble art, and I was selling that, and I was creating money for our local food bank. I would drop off flowers randomly. If somebody's having a rubbish day, we've all been there. You wake up, you're crying. No idea why. Why are you crying? Don't know. Why are you crying? There must be something wrong. What can we do? Don't try and fix this. It's just a rain cloud that I'm under at the minute. I need to cry it out and I'll be fine. We can't always solve problems. It's not even a problem. You cry a bit, you know, it is what it is. So again, somebody's having a bad day, drop off flowers, and there we go, a serotonin release, and you feel good that you've helped somebody. The oxytocin's hard, you know, the oxytocin, being able to hug and be around people, and that dancing, but you can still do it, listening to music really loud whilst cooking, feel good activities, reading a book, getting the kids to give me a quick massage, come over here and do this, just do this for mummy, just do this, just that sort of being around them, sitting with them, arms around each other, that kind of feeling of love that comes. Hugs, just hugs, have a hug every now and then. A 20-second hug is just magic. I don't know what's with 20 seconds, but try it. So that was the oxytocin. And lastly, endorphins. So I was talking about being around mummies and going for walks with each other is what my thing is at the minute. 2 hours minimum, rant it out. We talk about different subjects, and I have different friends that I talk about different things with, and we put the world to rights, and God, we laugh. Laughter is definitely, it really is the best medicine. And there will be a day when we'll look back and we will laugh again, and we'll see things. We will wish we'd done things differently, but hopefully we will have nothing but pride and respect and love for the person that managed to get through that period.
To be like kind to my mind in terms of health and well-being, I dance, and I don't apologize for being a clinician and you know, being involved in dancing. I think it's massively important that as a clinician in healthcare, as a leader, that you have hobbies and you have interests and you pursue and develop them, because you know, I love my work and I could do it all the time 24/7, but that's not healthy. And I'm kind to myself by, you know, just forms of exercise as well. But dance is really something important to me, and taking time out. It's okay to take time out. Like, I have deadlines, I have work streams, but you don't have to be at it 24/7, and you don't need to feel guilty when you are having a pamper, having a bath, putting a face mask on. That's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's being kind to yourself and your mind. And I guess those are things that I've started doing more of. I'm not going to be a hypocrite and say that I've done that throughout my career. It's actually in the past kind of year, I guess, specifically during COVID, that's something that I really took on board, is how important it is to be kind to yourself, because you need to put yourself first in a lot of aspects so that you can be the best version of yourself for everyone around you as well, and your patients.
Other things that are really important for your well-being are the people around you. We're not all, you know, lucky in that we don't necessarily always have someone at home, but, you know, it can be your urban family, i.e. your friends. It can be family, even if they're distant and far away, or even in another country, or it can be the people we come home to every day. So the people around us are absolutely vital, and they're vital to me. I have a hugely supportive partner, a lovely little boy, and a family who are amazing. And then my brilliant friends who make me laugh even when things are just awful. So those things are, you know, really important. And then for me, it's silly things like looking at puppies on Twitter. I'm just a really dog person. We don't have a dog at the moment. So I just vicariously live through other people's puppy photos, and, you know, do things like when I can, you know, go swimming and get outside. But those are the things, you know, everybody will find what works for them.
I go for long walks, cycle, do exercise videos as much as I can. I think being a mum as well, it's nice to have a bit of time to myself. See it as a reward. Play a bit of Sudoku, and just have time when you switch off the phone and social media, and just have some non-internet days.
The other thing for me, I think, is, you know, don't ruminate on your mistakes. I think, you know, reflect on them, maybe act on them, but then move on. Because, you know, if you continue to reflect on things that you think have gone wrong in a negative way, again, that isn't really helping you at all. You know, it's all, I think failure can be a really good thing when you know, realize your mistakes, act on them, and then, you know, move on.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, everybody. So that brings us to the end of our third webinar. So today was all about mental health and taking care of yourself and being kind to your mind. And it's been really lovely to hear from these inspirational women who've been able to give an insight into how they care for their mental health. So if you've enjoyed this episode, as with every week, we are paired with another charity. And this week it is the Baby Bank Network Bristol. So if you have enjoyed this episode, you've got a few pennies to spare, please find their details in the YouTube description and on social media and go and make a small donation. The conversation again will be carrying on Clubhouse and on Twitter. You know the deal by this point. It's the hashtags WIHL webinars and HLA Live if you're on Twitter. And if not, you can join us on Clubhouse. Thank you again for watching. Hopefully you've been enjoying each week finding out more about these topics or starting to think about them in just a bit more depth. And next week we'll be carrying on by talking about male advocacy. So thank you, and hope to see some of you again next week.
Thank you to everyone that made tonight's episode possible. Whenever our scholars are thinking about complex problems facing our health systems, we encourage them to think about how they make significant change in the world of healthcare. We are incredibly lucky to have some incredible scholars in the HLA. They use the HLA as a platform to take their ideas and bring them to fruition. If you are interested in the work of the HLA, why not join us at one of our future HLA events? Why not join one of our programs? Why not even become a HLA Scholar? Thank you for joining us. My name is Johan Marlwana, the Director of the HLA, and it's a good night from